Hey guys, so this is day 65 of the RC practice series. Let's hit it. So this passage was a simple read. The first paragraph talks of prevalence of obesity in the United States of America and its accepted definition. The second paragraph blames adipose tissue for the condition. In the past, it was required, but in the present, it has become a curse. Third paragraph hints at the difficulty in reversing the condition. The fourth paragraph tells us about the limits to sustainable weight loss. Beyond a point, it becomes difficult to keep losing weight. There are multiple biological factors at work. That is what the fourth paragraph tells me. The final paragraph, author gives us a suggestion. So consequent to the discussion, uh, just because it is very difficult to reverse the condition, author suggests that the condition be nipped in the bud, that the children should be fed the right things at the right age so that they do not grow up to be obese adults. That is the author's suggestion. And guys, do remember, if author ends a particular passage, for example, if author presents a problem throughout the passage, and in the last paragraph, let's say the author gives us, he offers a solution, then this solution is the main point. The problem was only context setting, defining the context. The main point is this solution. With this understanding, we can look at the questions now. Question number one, the primary purpose of the passage is, okay. Option A says, arguing that prevention is probably, okay, the best defense against obesity prevalent in the United States. That should be the correct answer as explained. In the last paragraph, author says that nip the problem in the bud, prevent obesity, because once you become obese, it is really difficult to reverse the condition. Option B, criticize the food and advertising industries. That's a passing point, a narrow point, not the main idea. Option C says explaining the reasons behind obesity. Okay, he does so. And the various ways in which one can lose pounds. He also does so. However, this is only the problem part. And as I explained, when author ends with the solution, then solution becomes the main idea, the main point. Therefore, this is only a passing point in context of the passage, in the bigger, broader context of the passage. It is narrow, it goes out. So though it is factually true, it is not the main point. The main point is A. The primary purpose, therefore, is A. To discourage dependency on fat diets, again, a narrow point of discussion. Not the main point. The focal point is prevention. Okay. By the rule of thumb mentioned in the passage, which of the following would be considered obese? Okay. The rule of thumb is mentioned here. A common rule of thumb classifies people who are more than 20% above their desirable weight as obese. Okay. So a 25-pound toddler whose desirable weight is 20 pounds. It's simple mathematical question. 5 pounds extra of 20 is 25%. Therefore, yes, he will be classified as obese. A large framed woman weighing 140 pounds whose desirable weight for her height is between 112 and 120 pounds. So if you take this 120, she is 20 above 120, which is less than, clearly less than 20%. So second is not. A 175-pound man who was 25 pounds over his desirable weight already and then gained an additional 10 pounds. So if you subtract 175 minus 10, you get 165, and even this was 25 pounds extra than the desirable weight. So the desirable weight is 140. If the desirable weight is 140 and his weight is 175, so he's 35 more. 35 on 140 is surely greater than 20%. Therefore, 3 is also obese. So correct answer 1 and 3 only. Option C should be the correct answer. Which of the following, if true, best helps to explain why a greater percentage of women than men are considered obese by the measure mentioned in the passage? The measure is 20% above their desirable weight. Again, okay. And we have to find out the reason why a greater percentage of women than men are considered obese. Option A says the measure is the same for both men and women, but it is normal for women to carry a greater percentage of fat at any weight. It is normal for, this is vague, and this is arbitrary. It does not give us any strong reason, concrete reason for why more women are obese than men are. The average man is heavier than the average woman, okay. Therefore, men generally need to gain more weight than women do before they are considered obese. This is irrelevant to the standard mentioned, and it rather sets a new standard. So option B is not by this standard, 20% above the desirable weight. It does not cater to this standard. It rather establishes a new standard. So it is irrelevant. There are more women in the United States than there are number of women is irrelevant because we are talking about the percentage of women who are obese. So number becomes irrelevant there in that calculation. Women burn up fewer calories, okay, than men because their bodies contain a lower percentage of muscle, and muscle burns calories at a faster rate. So basically for some reason, women burn up fewer calories. If they burn up fewer calories, that is the best reason why women are more obese or considered obese more often than men are. All of the following statements about protein are supported by the passage except protein के बारे में, okay. Option A says gram for gram, foods that are high in protein are lower in calories than foods that are high in fat, okay. Put simply, protein has a lower calorific value than fats have, okay. So something of this nature was mentioned in the second paragraph. Fat yields 9 calories per gram, while protein yields only 4 calories per gram. So obviously A is correct. Because A is correct, it is not the answer. We are finding except. Foods devoid of protein are devoid of nitrogen. Now there was a line here. Protein is also the only source of nitrogen in the body. If protein is the only source of nitrogen, foods devoid of protein must also be devoid of nitrogen. Therefore, this is also correct. 9 grams of protein yield the same number of calories as 4 grams of fat. 9 grams of protein. Let's see. 9 grams of protein would give me how much? 4 into 9, 36. The same number of calories as 4 grams of fat. 4 grams of fat would give me how much? 9 into 4, 36. Therefore, yes, C is also correct. Protein is not converted into adipose tissue. Not mentioned anywhere. Can't say. I'm not saying this is wrong, but this is not mentioned anywhere. This is alien. This is can't say. Therefore, this is the correct answer. We cannot infer this from the passage. If it could be demonstrated which would most strengthen the claim that the feeding patterns of children, okay, the feeding patterns of children can determine the adolescent and adult eating habits those children will develop. We have to strengthen this claim, support this claim. Okay, let's see. Option A, the incidence of obesity in children whose parents are both obese is 80%. Option A is not about habits, it is rather about heredity now. So therefore this option goes out. It does not support the claim. It is irrelevant to the claim. Option B, 36% of infants who are obese during their first half year of life are also overweight between the ages of 20 and 36. Now this does support it. It does provide some support to the argument. Let's see if we have a better choice. But the percentage is only 36, which means 64% of infants who are obese do not end up as obese adults. 64% do not end up. So there's a question mark. Only a small percentage, or rather a minority, goes on to become obese. So option C, excessive weight gain during the teen years can set the stage for a lifetime battle against the bulge. Now it is about teen years, while the question is feeding patterns of children can determine the adolescent. So we are not talking about teen years, we are talking about childhood or infanthood feeding habits setting the stage for teen years. So this is also irrelevant, distortion of information. Option D says only less than 20% of youngsters who are fat as 5-year-olds, okay, do not end up fat as adults. Only less than 20% of youngsters who are fat as 5-year-old do not end up fat as adults, which means, put simply, 80% of fat kids end up as fat adults. 80% of fat kids, 5-year-olds, end up as fat adults. So that supports the claim, that best supports the claim, I should say, that feeding patterns of children can determine the adolescent and adult eating habits. Now, mind you, if I had an option, none of these I would go with that particular option, for the simple reason that the argument was about feeding patterns. It was not about obesity. While option D only says that 80% of fat kids end up as fat adults. So it only tangentially supports the argument, it indirectly supports the argument that feeding patterns or feeding habits do not change. Feeding habits of childhood set the stage for feeding habits for adulthood. But mind you, feeding habits and obesity are not always directly proportional. Therefore, I can eliminate all 4 options. But given these 4 options, if I have to go with one, D obviously. Assuming that obesity and feeding habits are equivalent in this context, we go with D. D is the best answer. So I hope you got all of them right. This is your VM signing off. Cheers to learning.